Good morning, gamers and gamettes. Welcome to another 7.37 update video. Today is just going to be focused on the facets. Last night I recorded a video where I read the entire patch notes. I'm not expecting you guys to go through and watch that entire video, but if you want to, leave it on in the background, or if you want my take on any sort of specific changes in the game, we cover pretty much everything in that last video, just broadly though. And so today I wanted to go through and cover the facet changes. So we're going to start with the new facets, we're going to do the facet reworks after that, the facet buffs, and then we're going to close off the video with the facet nerfs. So to get started, I'm not going to go through and demo every single facet change. A lot of them are just numbers tweaks. I am, however, going to go through and demo some of the newer facets, some of the new facets. So we're going to start off with Bristleback. He is the first hero that received a new facet in terms of alphabetical order, that is. So he received Seeing Red. Warpath can be activated to grant bonus attack damage and movement speed for a short duration while seeing red. Bristleback's vision is reduced to a narrow cone, and he does not share vision with his allies. So that means that you can't just grab an observer ward, place it down, and activate Seeing Red. You do have to commit your vision as the Bristleback players. You activate Warpath. So here's what it looks like before. Now this is me seeing red, and even though I have allies there, they can only see. So it gives you the bonus of damage, 50% bonus damage, 50% bonus movement speed, and it lasts for 6 seconds at max level. The next facet I wanted to cover is the Earth Spirit Ready to Roll facet. I believe this is going to be the pick for support Earth Spirits. I guess I should have mentioned Bristleback that Seeing Red facet is finally Bristleback has a good facet. Earth Spirit, he now has the Ready to Roll, so we're just gonna grab our ally and enemy as well. So let's just compare the two at max level. Moves about this speed, stuns for that long, and then the roll when you go through an ally. Now if you the facet reads as rolling over an allied hero grants the allied hero 30% movement speed for 4 seconds. If he rolls over an allied hero, Earth Spirit will travel further and faster and stun enemies for longer. So kind of like rolling over your Stone Remnant, except now you can see it stuns them for longer, and now your ally's movement speed is buffed. Take a look. You can see the buff right here. Ready to Roll buff. Pretty cool. I think this is gonna see play on support Earth Spirit. Doom got a new facet, Impending Doom. I made my take on it last night. I think it's a funny facet for sure. I did do the math on a 44-minute game. At 44 minutes, which I thought was like the average duration of my matches at the moment. They can range from 30 minutes to 50 minutes. I thought 44 was a really good median. And so at 44 minutes, you have a roughly about 20 seconds total to the Impending Doom. Not 20 extra seconds. That's 16 seconds, and then at 44 minutes it is 20.04 or 20.4, something like that. So it's not super strong, and I'm not going to go into a demo to wait 40 minutes to show that, but every 6.66 minutes Doom's duration is increased by 0.66 seconds. Funny. And it increases the damage. Very nice. But I do think Devil's Bargain, going Midas, selling your Midas later, has incredible value. And then Gluttony, winning your lane. You pretty much always win your lane. If you lose your lane with Gluttony, you're probably just bad at Doom. Huskar got a new facet. So he has the Bloodbath, the Nothul Transfusion. But he now has Incendiary, which last night I described as the all-in facet. Burning Spear also burns enemies for a percentage of their max health. Costs max health instead of current health. Reduces burn duration. So no matter how low your HP is, it's always going to cost you 4% of your maximum health. You're going to be draining your health really, really fast. However, on the flip side, max health burn is at 1%. It does a lot of damage. So you get 5 stacks. You're burning 5% of their health per second on top of the damage from your right clicks. So I was suggesting that you either pick this facet up when you have a specific comp for it, or if you're going to get an early Satanic in order to keep yourself sustained, because you're going to be dropping your HP really fast and you need to bring it back up, otherwise you're going to die. You're not going to be able to armlet toggle a 4% health cost. I'm not sure how viable that's going to be to keep you alive post 15 minutes. So be careful using this facet. You might just throw games, but I think if you can pull it off, if you're a Huskar player and if you're really good with armlet toggling and sustaining yourself and you have the comp for it, I think Incendiary can absolutely win you games. Death Prophet is our next new facet. We're going to be seeing Death Prophet later because they also got a facet rework, but not to jump the gun here. Death Prophet delays a percentage of incoming damage, taking the damage in even intervals over a short duration. So if you're thinking, wow, that just sounds like Kunkka boat buff, that's exactly what I said last night. I think this is just a Kunkka boat buff that you retain for the entire game. However, I want to keep this in mind. I can't like mouse over it, but look underneath the passive effect. It does say breakable. So if you are running into Death Prophets with this facet, I suggest getting break of some sort, and you can break this effect, and now they no longer, because if you look, levels with Exorcism at level 18, Death Prophet's going to have 50% boat buff for the entire game, but if you break her, you can burst her. So that is going to be the counter for this. It's a countered by break facet. Now we have Lone Druid. We are also going to be seeing him later, but we're just focusing on bare necessities here. We are under the new facets. Lone Druid's items are more powerful and inventory is smaller. So you can hold Alt on it to see the attributes that are affected at maximum level. At level 18, you get 80% stat bonus. So I'm trying to think what kind of items I would build to have an inventory of 3. It's definitely limiting on your builds. However, if you just focus on your inventory, you do get backpack slots, like a lot of backpack slots. I didn't even realize, but these are all backpack slots now. Increased his health from 1264 to 2848. So that's nuts. Imagine getting Heart of Taras Crimson Guard. And that buff is going to be crazy because you also get the health and armor value from that is going to be buffed. So now I'm at 3298. I say we get like Boots of Bearing as well. Now you're super fast and you're a tank. And that's not even taking into account your bear. We do have the new facet Alpha Wolves. Increases the max level of summoning wolves while lowering the max level of Howl and Feral Impulse. So now summoning wolves has 6 skill points. And I think it says at level 5, wolves gain hamstring. So if you remember old Lycan with the hamstring slow and you hated it like I did, welcome to 2024. Now they have hamstring again. So supports are going to start crying in all chat when level 6 wolves have Hightail, an active ability that gives the wolves phased movement speed, evasion movement speed, and attack speed, as well as hamstrings. So you can't level this to max level until level 11. So keep that in mind. And now the wolves have 575. We see they have hamstring, they have invisibility, cripple, Hightail. So it looks like it's an active. So you can have it on an auto cast, or you can have it be specific cast. So we have Crystal Maiden walking. We're gonna give her boots. She's walking, and we're gonna hamstring her. So she's rooted. It's a root. It's not a slow. But if you get one at a time, and then Hightail for the movement speed. Look at this. It seems like micro Lycan players are going to have a blast with those. If you are good at micro and you like Lycan, this is definitely the facet. So Medusa got a new facet and lost a facet. So Venomous Volley is her new facet. Every 5 attacks, Medusa applies a poison to her arrow that briefly reduces movement speed, attack speed, and cast speed. So the cast speed slow is the biggest in terms of how much it slows, but I think the attack speed is going to be the one that gets you kills. I think that the movement slow, if you're there running away and you are hitting them 1.5 seconds, is only going to pretty much get you 1 or 2 extra hits in. So I think for the early game, it's not really going to catch you any kills unless you also get Mystic Snake off. However, They do have new Gorgon's Grasp abilities, so if you have taken the time to read what this ability does, I think Venomous Volley and Gorgon's Grasp really work hand in hand together. So we may see Medusas in this patch not leveling Mystic Snake first, but going Gorgon's Grasp for farm. Because I think that the mana regeneration from Mystic Snake is still going to reign supreme, but I do think that there is an avenue to consider with Gorgon's Grasp. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. I think that it's definitely going to... We're going to have to see it played out in games. I'm not going to run this in ranked until I know for sure. But Venomous Volley and Gorgon's Grasp seem to work really well together. And I'm guessing that the Gorgon's Grasp, the Venomous Volley is going to be affected by the level 25 talent tree if it's not already affected by split shots. So I'm not exactly sure on how this all works. I can't wait to see in games, but for the time being I would consider this the pick over Engorged, because Medusa was already seeing no play, and in this patch Anti-Mage also got buffed and reworked Aghanims, and it's a lot stronger, especially against Medusa. So consider waiting to pick this in ranked, play it a couple of times in unranked, see how the skill builds feel, and consider Venomous Volley over Engorged is my opinion. So I put Naga Siren as a new facet, even though Deluge was already a facet. It's just, I think the facet was reworked so much that it, in my opinion, is considered a new facet. I do have a Reworks section of the video that's going to be coming up right after the new facets, as I mentioned at the start of the video, but I put Deluge here because Naga Siren can create a splash around herself and her illusions, right? Both of these do that with the Riptide, but now we have Deluge, and they changed it to now it's status resistance reduction, and it caps your movement speed at 225. So every 7 seconds at max level, it will cap the enemy's movement speed. I think that it's really strong. 3 seconds of slow at 225. That's not just a slow. It caps your movement speed. So you're not going to be able to get like a speed buff out of it because your movement speed is capped. So you're going to have to use a Force Staff, and you're going to have to maybe perhaps use some sort of Dispel. But in the... You'd think so, but in the gameplay update, if you go down to Naga Siren, it actually says at the Naga Siren changes that it is... Oh, never mind. I was thinking about something else. Well, it is dispellable. So you're going to want to run dispels. You're going to want to run disarms. So Heaven's Halberd got buffed. So consider Heaven's Halberd against Naga, even though it does still cost 75 mana, and she usually runs a Diffusal Blade. So good luck. Visage got a new facet, Death Toll. Soul Assumption kills give up to 210 bonus gold. So the way this works is reduces the gold from creeps, right? So you can use this on creeps, you can use this on enemies. It's going to give you 35 gold per soul. So up to 210 gold at max level. Enemy heroes killed within 3 seconds of being affected by a Soul Assumption, which is like every single time because Soul Assumption is a big burst. You get bonus gold. So bonus gold per charge kill is going to be 35 gold, and then creep is 15%. So consider this for getting a lot of farm really fast. I think that if you max out Soul Assumption and you get a bunch of kills early on with Grave Chill, Soul Assumption, later get Stone Form or whatever the Summon Familiars, and you're roaming around the map, instead of playing like a split laning pusher, I think you could go for early ganks and go for maybe a Rod of Atos and get a bunch of kills. With Soul Assumption, you are going to scale really fast. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Alchemist levels fast, but it's definitely going to be like POS 1 free farm level fast. Our last new facet for today is going to be Call of the Void. Upon exiting Dissimulate, Aether Remnants are created at the 3 portals furthest from Void Spirit. So I wanted to see what this one looks like. Have them move around, and I think so it looks like this. So they're rooted because of the 25 talent, but the thing that we're focusing on here is the resonance. What is it? Aether Remnants that gets summoned. So it's not going to summon. Notice how it doesn't summon if you go in the middle. The Aether Remnants only work if you do it on the outer rings, and then it puts it here. So assuming that the heroes are all split up, it counters that. So you can hit 2 heroes with 1, and then you have a chance to get heroes that are coming to save. But it has a 60% effectiveness. So it lasts for 4 seconds. It is effective for 60% of its natural values. So the Void Spirit thing is this. This is what it looks like. And then the duration of these ones is reduced. So it is some extra damage, but I'm not sure if it's going to be stronger than the shield. Obviously, having more disables, if you can land them, is definitely going to be stronger. However, Sanctuary also got buffed, which we'll talk about after the reworks. So that's it for all the new facets. If you guys are sticking around to the end, I appreciate you. But if you were just here to see the new facets, I appreciate you guys for watching. Let's go to the reworks. So I'm just going to briefly touch upon the reworks. We're actually going to do the reworks here because they're all just kind of in a row. So the first one I have is Arc Warden. They moved some of the Disorder slow and moved it over to the Order. So Disorder was definitely stronger. You ran Disorder on your main and then you had Order on your double, but now it's looking like it may be just a bit more balanced and we might see people picking up Order, because Order was definitely, in my opinion, better for the 1v1 in lane when you considered how old Arc Warden was before the Dire and Radiant. I definitely preferred Order in the 1v1, but for the longevity of the game, I preferred Disorder. Now I'm leaning more on the opposite. I think I like Disorder for the short term and then Order for the long term, because now you tend to use your double a lot more. At least I do. I use my double a lot more. Now my double is going to be buffed and I'm going to be nerfed, so the laning phase is going to be a little bit rough, but my double, who ends up doing most of the carrying of the match, is going to be buffed. So this is more or less just a rework, just moving some slow over here, because this one was definitely just a little overtuned. Beastmaster, touching up on it, it's just numbers because they added a new new innate. So now let's go down to Faceless Void. I'm going to be touching up on these. There's going to be a couple of heroes that are just like this. So you're going to notice that they brought Time Zone and Chronosphere. So you're like, oh, what? That's so lame, because Chronosphere was already his Facet. Now we have Time Zone, and that's a new ability, but now we have the old ability, and we don't have the Time Walk buff. That's correct. The Time Walk buff with the Facet means you're always picking this one, and you're getting Chronosphere and you're getting the Time Walk buff. Now you're just getting one ability. I think overall it's strong. It's like better design, because the Time Walk damage for short duration after time walking, it was just an unnecessary buff to the hero, and the hero is already strong. And now we have the Chronosphere and the Time Zone, which makes it way more clear as to what the Facet does, because you would click this and you get the Time Walk, but you're also getting Chronosphere. But you click this, you're not getting the Time Walk, and you get Time Zone. It was just confusing for people who weren't familiar with how the Facets worked, and once you understood it, you were like, why does this one get buffed on the Time Walk and I get Chronosphere, which is stronger? Now we actually may have a choice as to picking Time Zone and Chronosphere. So very cool. The next one I'm going to look at is Lifestealer. So Lifestealer got something very similar. They added the Corpse Eater passive to the innate ability of the hero. So the reason they did this, I believe, because the Facet was just more fun. It may not have been stronger than Unfettered, but you were getting Rage, you were also getting Corpse Eater, and it's very similar to Chronosphere, except they added the Corpse Eater to innate because they nerfed it so many times. Now Unfettered was just stronger, but now you can pick Unfettered or Rage and still get the Corpse Eater buff. If you're not familiar, Unfettered is kind of just like a dispel, and you get magic resistance and status resistance. However, Rage is like magic immunity, how BKB works. So you get BKB, but you can't use it while stunned. Unfettered, you can use it while stunned. It's pretty much Enrage. So you have Enrage, and then you have Rage. So that is the rework to Lifestealer's Facets. Luna is our next one. So they just renamed it from Lunar Orbit to Moon Shield, because if you saw in the last video, they did add Lunar Orbit as a basic ability and reworked Lunar Blessing as well as Moon Shield. Now Moon Shield gives you damage reduction. So you have Moon Storm, which is how it worked before, and I do think you're going to be running Moon Shield and scaling Lunar Orbit over. I'm guessing we're going to see Lunar Orbit Moonglaves is going to be the new skill build, and then we're just not going to see Eclipse until like level 16. That's my prediction, because with Moon Shield and you get damage reduction every 25 seconds at max level, it's actually going to be pretty strong, and Luna's going to be a right-clicking team fighter, I think. You're going to go Mask of Madness, and you're going to pop the Moon Shield, and it's going to negate the armor reduction. So you're going to get your armor reduced, but you're also going to get damage reduction, and you have a rotating glaive around you that does damage. So I think overall, we're going to see Luna back in it, and this is just pretty much, I just wanted to cover the Facet. Magnus, very similar. They added the Skewer buff to the Facet to Skewer. So now Skewer just does tree and cliff hit damage, and now we have reverse polarity and reverse polarity. So if you think it's funny, you're correct. Reverse polarity is really stupid, and I really hope they add a third Facet that actually does something unique, because having reverse polarity, good. Having reverse polarity, I have yet to see this make play. I have yet to see this actually viable, because you're like, oh, I can remove all the enemy heroes from my teammate. Yes, but you can also stun all the enemy heroes next to your teammate. So which one would you really rather have? Medusa, I wrote Medusa on here just because you're not going to see Mana Pact anymore. The Facet was removed. So Phantom Lancer got a big plethora of changes. They did nerf the bonus illusion damage by 2%. Then they also nerfed the illusion damage from Spirit Lance. Then they also nerfed Juxtapose illusion damage. However, if you take a look here, illusory armaments, items that grant bonus damage instead of granting base damage. The reason I didn't put this under nerf or buff is because I'm actually unsure if these changes are going to affect Phantom Lancer that much in terms of the meta. I think he's still going to be viable, and I think with this bonus base damage innate, which W to the devs for creating an innate ability that isn't just Phantom Rush. I think that you could build into something that could increase your base damage, or you build around heroes that have high base damage, and you can make this work more. But I still think you're going to go the Aghanims build. I still think you're going to get Aghanims Diffusal and Manta Style, so I'm not sure if this is going to matter much. So I think that the changes to the illusion damage and the innate are negligible, just from looking at it. I'm not sure how this is going to affect Phantom Lancer. He might be broken, he might be hard nerfed, but based on the number tweaking, it really seems like with the bonus base damage, you're going to be getting a lot of illusion damage anyways. So the Juxtapose damage, I moved it as a rework and not as a Primal Beast. So we did get the reworked Pulverize, now provides 20% AoE increase for all items and abilities per hit. I talked about this last night when I was a little bit more sleep deprived, and I thought about it overnight, and I still think that this is a really strong Facet. They did also buff Romp and Stomp, which we're going to talk about later when we talk about Facet buffs, but Ferocity is just reworked, and it gives you a 20% AoE bonus per ability hit. So it's 20% buff. Boom, boom, boom. You get 20%, 40%, 60%. Dude, I don't know how strong this is going to be, but it has a huge AoE. You're going to be getting an AoE bonus, and it lasts for 10 seconds. So my prediction is we're going to be seeing some big AoE Shiva's guards. We're going to be seeing big AoE tramples. The next rework I wrote on here is Shadow Fiend. So now also improves Necromastery. So the Lasting Presence is like your all-in Facet, and now I think they've doubled down on the all-in part. So every hero kill increases max souls by 1. So if you see a Shadow Fiend that is snowballing, you need to take them out, because once you do that, you reduce their max souls by however many kills they have. So This is a rework a little bit. I did kind of consider moving it as a buff, but because it used to be on the Necromastery and now is on the Facet, I deemed it a rework. Our next rework is Meld for Void Blades. So attacking a target with Meld also applies the bonus damage and debuff to enemies hit by Side Blades. So Meld overall did get nerfed by half of its duration, so the armor reduction and the debuff. But I do think with Void Blades, you are seeing a little bit more nuance with Side Blades. You're going to be putting debuffs on multiple heroes. So overall just got reworked. I'm not sure how much stronger it's going to be. I do think this hero is going to be super strong just because of their new innate, but we'll talk about that on a future video. So Wind Ranger got the Magnus and Faceless treatment, so the same idea as before. This hero had a facet that buffed Wind Run and gave you regular focus fire, and then had a facet that you didn't get buffed Wind Run and you got like AoE focus fire. So you got Whirlwind, or you would choose to buff your Wind Run and get focus fire. So pretty much every single game you were going focus fire, unless you were, or a Wind Run, the Tailwind, unless you were against like a CK, then you would go Whirlwind. But now you just have the choice between the two different ults, which I think is a good change, because you shouldn't be incentivized to pick one that gives you the good ult in quotes, as well as a Wind Run buff, which was already stupid because you got the Aghanims and you just snowballed. But now you don't have that option. Now you have Focus Fire, looking a little bit more viable since it was also buffed. That is all for the Facet reworks. So we're just going to skim through the buffs, and then we're going to skim through the nerfs. So we're going to have a long list here. We're just going to be talking about numbers here for the rest of the video. So if that doesn't interest you and you just wanted to see the reworks and the new facets, thank you guys for watching. If you're here to stick through the end, I appreciate you. Our first buff is Irrationality. So Chaos Knight got a buff, and so instead of the 33% chance to do nothing, now has a 33% chance to silence. So now it has 3 different 33% chance to do, I think it is break, disarm, or silence. So you do have the option for break, you have the option for disarm, or you have the option for silence, as opposed to just break and disarm. Crystal Maiden added 25% to Blue Heart Flow. So if you were on the fence between the two facets, I do think Cold Comfort now is absolutely a little bit more viable, because 25% buff to Blue Heart Flow is actually crazy, because now you have way more spammability in the lane. You have way more mana. You don't have mana issues in the mid game. You're going to get 1 mana regen item or something, and you are just going to scale in mana regen from there. With the 75% buff, you're just going to be able to spam abilities, though having the cast range AoE bonus from the other one is really nice. So I'm still on the fence between the two. Before I went the other one, now Blue Comfort does look a lot more viable. Dazzle got numbers changes, so Nothal Boon was increased by 2 seconds, and Poison Bloom was increased by 5 damage at level 1 and 20 damage at max level. Death Prophet now also grants spirits from Death Prophet's own death while she is dead. So Spirit Collector got buffed, and I think that's also due to the fact that Spirit Collector just wasn't the stronger facet, and now it is a stronger facet, and as well needs to compete with Morning Ritual. Disruptor got the biggest change in the patch. They increased the cast range from 900 to 1050. So Kinetic Fence is absolutely viable. Said no one ever. Yes, I made the same joke yesterday. Drow got the movement speed penalty decreased from 40% to 25%. I did already see a Drow in my last match. Did I own her? Yes. Did she get destroyed? Yes, but I do not think that is because this wasn't strong enough. I think the player just sucked. So the movement speed penalty decrease is actually pretty nice, because that was the biggest thing, the biggest issue I had with Sidestep is I honestly just wanted to get the other one and get Shard early and then get a bunch of kills. But now with multi-shot, with the Sidestep, movement speed penalty decrease, you're actually seeing Drows able to kite and multi-shot at the same time. If you multi-shotted before with the 40% movement speed slow, you really were pretty much just standing still. So anybody you were running from was going to catch up to you. I think the biggest facet buff actually is right here. This Slugger knockback effect is now applied on any kill made by Earthshaker's ability, not just Enchant Totem. I just played a game testing it out in a ranked match, and I had this facet picked, and when I was securing last hits with Fissure, I was also dealing a metric fudge ton of damage to the enemy carry. So I was playing at 4, and I would secure range creeps. Not only would the Fissure hit and stun the carry, but then the ranged creep would fly and also hit and slow and damage the carry. So this was absolutely strong. And then whenever I got Blink Dagger and hit a big Echo Slam, anybody who was hit by the Echo Slam gets hit by the Echo Slam AoE, also gets hit by Aftershock, also gets hit by the Slugger. So now you're absolutely able to just get a rampage just from ulting, and that really does depend on the placement of the enemies and where they are and where they're going. But Slugger overall just seems a lot stronger. Grimstroke got a number buff, so bonus damage per target increased by, it starts off the same but moves up to 80, so you get, a nice 15 buff right there. Fine art. Scurry for some reason got buffed, despite the fact that this character is stupid broken and the bonus damage really didn't get nerfed by that much, so I still think Hoodwink's going to be on top. Go Nuts got buffed though, so hopefully this means we're going to be seeing less Acorn Shot spam and more Scurry spam, because Acorn Shot's just super annoying. We did just see number buffs, so they just added 50 to both cast range and attack range, which hopefully that doesn't break the hero too much, because the hero is already strong in my opinion. Leshrac, I consider this a buff. The duration is decreased from 7 seconds to 6 seconds, and I think that is a major buff because Diabolic Edict still does the amount of damage, but is going to have that damage coming in at sooner intervals. So the damage from Diabolic Edict is going to happen much faster. I mean, by 1 second, yes, much faster. It's going to be doing its overall damage. You do not need to commit 7 seconds to destroy the tower. It is 6 seconds of damage to the tower, and you still do the same damage. So consider it like that, as opposed to, oh no, the duration got nerfed. No, it is actually the damage got buffed in a shorter duration. I did throw Lone Druid on here for the Summon Spirit Bearer and Unbearable. I don't think Unbearable is going to be the Facet people pick, just because having the shapeshift on the Spirit Bearer is kind of a waste, because you have it on Lone Druid so that he can survive the team fight. But it now also increases the attack distance threshold between Lone Druid and the Spirit Bearer. So now, by an additional 500 space, you can sit back in the trees while your bearer is fighting the enemy team. So this might actually allow Unbearable to see play, but now with Bear Necessities, I'm guessing people are going to be running this and finding some cheese with that. But Unbearable with the 500 threshold, if they don't have like a Ricky or something to find you, like a bounty hunter, I think this is actually kind of viable. Marcy got numbers buffs. Health gain from lifesteal also heals the bodyguarded allies. So if you lifesteal with bodyguard on, you're healing your allies. So you're kind of like a pseudo IO, but you're required to hit enemies. Muerta's Ofrenda facet got buffed, but I'm not sure just how good it is still. I did play Muerta a little bit last patch, and I only used the other facet because it just seemed stronger. Now with Ofrenda, with the bonus, you get now increases Muerta's attack speed by up to 45 when she is within 450 range of her Ofrenda. And Ofrenda is no longer destroyed or goes on cooldown when Muerta respawns. So now you can respawn at the Ofrenda and it doesn't destroy it. So you can keep respawning at the same Ofrenda, so you don't have to keep replacing it. And it doesn't go on cooldown. So I'm guessing this means it's going to start seeing play, but I still don't really know how it's going to be viable. Ironwood Treant got buffed, so the vision got buffed by a lot, especially on daytime, so that means you're not going to just be straight up feeding it every time. Now also only requires a single tree, so you're not going to be breaking a bunch of trees to cast one. And the movement speed got buffed, and as well as, if you watched my video yesterday, you should know that the Solar Crest also got buffed, and running Ironwood Treant and building Solar Crest was really good at taking towers. So I think that this might make Ironwood Tree just a little bit more viable, but I still think it's only going to be used as Rat Dodo. I did put this as a buff. So Illusory Orb now shows a preview of the orb trajectory. I never saw this in play, and I think it's because it was just kind of too difficult to make work. And now that you have the preview of the orb trajectory, we may see more usage of this, but I do think the other facet is still just stronger. Pugna got 2 buffs, so Rewards of Ruin also gains spell amplification per destroyed allied towers. So now not only do you destroy enemy towers to get an increased 1.25. So yes, the spell amp got decreased, but now you have the opportunity to deny your towers and get bonus spell amp. So I think that this overall is stronger. However, it is the situational where you're able to destroy your own towers. But on the flip side, Siphoning Ward got its damage and health increased, as well as the talents. The talents seem to be leaning towards going the Nether Ward talent. So grabbing this Facet, going the Nether Ward talent could also be super strong. Razor is another Facet that I think got a little overtuned. I think Storm Surge also lowers strike cooldown by 2.5 seconds during Eye of the Storm. So you're just going to be zapping people passively a lot faster, and it's going to be doing a lot of damage. And I'm pretty sure it still slows for a second. And so now you're going to be doing that way sooner, especially if you're in the front of the battle, which you usually are as Razor. So if you're taking a lot of damage, getting a lot of hits, enemies are around you, you're going to be striking them a lot sooner. Ricky got a number buff to Tricks of the Trade, so you're just overall just a faster farmer. Sand King got an AoE bonus to Dust Devil, and I think this is because they changed the Aghanim's and you're no longer going to be stunning people in your Ags, which I think is a good change. It was really annoying and it was just unfun to play against. Now is going to be doing the Stinger AoE, so it's going to be slowing you in the Dust Devil. So if you think that's better, then that's good, especially with the AoE bonus. It's up to 600. But without the stun, it may not see as much play. So as you know, Sand King is only usually really good for one patch and then they get nerfed. So Sand King got potentially nerfed here with Stinger. All the Stinger damage got nerfed, but now Stinger is also in part of the Ags. So we'll see how it goes with Bloodstone buffs. I think that this could see play still, but we did see a buff to the Facet, which is what we're covering. Shadow Demon got a number buff, despite the fact that I already had a really high win rate with this hero, and I was actually using this Facet as well. So I'm curious as to why they thought buffing Disseminate was necessary, as well as the Disseminate talent, but it got its number buff, so I'm going to keep playing it. Shadow Shaman. So I only ever ran Cluster Clock because I did play against Massive Serpent Ward gamers, and every single time that I ran into a Massive Serpent Ward gamer, I just told my teammates to pick fast attack speed heroes, or I just pinged at it, and as if I spam ping it, my enemies or my allies will just start attacking it. So now it got its health increased to 10 times the health of a regular Serpent Ward. So the attacks to destroy is increased, so it goes from 2 hits to, I think, is that 20 hits to destroy? I'm not exactly sure, but it gets a 10 times talent, or 10 times damage, 10 times health. So makes Massive Serpent Ward a little bit more viable, but I still think I'm going to run Cluster Clock because the Dispel is super strong on allies, as well as the fact that you can potentially save yourself every now and again. When I did have a teammate with Pipe, you can get down to 1 HP, and then having a Pipe means Storm Spirit Shot Caller got buffed. So I think that if this works the way that I think it does, now your first attack. So it says debuff now grants that the next attack the enemy is redirected onto themselves and triggers the overload charge. So it's kind of like a why are you hitting yourself Facet now. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out in games, because if you are using this on a hero with crit, do they crit themselves? Which would be really funny. So we'll see. I think this is a buff, but I want to know. I'm curious as to how strong it is. And they did nerf some of the talents as well. Techies, Squeeze Scope. I never saw a single person run this talent or this Facet, and I'm curious as to see how this might change that. I still think that the Spoon Stash is the best Facet, and I do think Spleen Secret Sauce is the most fun Facet, and so Squeeze Scope I don't think we're gonna see a lot of play. I think this is supposed to be for like a POS 1 Techies, but Techies just takes way too long to scale. It's kind of like running a Willow as a carry and then having them rush Ags. It just really doesn't work unless you have that like that perfect game. Timbersaw saw a number buff to Timber Chain. Splinter slow duration increased from 0.75 seconds to 1 second. Is probably good. And they also nerfed exposure therapy by slightly because the hero was just a little underwhelming, especially with the Shredder Facet. So hopefully this makes it a little bit more viable. Tinker got a number buff to repair bots. I never saw this once played in my match, and now is increased by 15 health per second. So that's a lot of health per second. Do I think it's going to be super strong? No, though they did change Warp Flare, and now Warp Flare works as a pseudo save, but also as a pseudo glimpse. So we might see this in play. Do I think it's super strong? I think it does have its place, but I think there's other heroes that do this better. So I'd probably just rather run Abaddon, especially since Abaddon got buffed. So Tusky Dusky got Drinking Buddies changed. I didn't put this as a rework. I put this as a buff because this is overall just a stronger thing. So you can now put this on an alt cast to only pull Tusk towards his ally. It's super good because you'd want to use Drinking Buddies, but your ally was closer to the enemy than you were. And now you're pulling your ally back away from the enemy just above them, and you would get pinged out every time. So Venomancer got a bunch of changes with Septic Shock, and I think Plague Carrier got buffed to accommodate for just how much stronger the other facet was. When attached to a carrier, ward health is now also increased by up to 2.5% of the carrier's max health. So your plague wards that are on your allies are not just going to get one tapped. They're now also gaining some of the HP from your allies. So overall, it's just very strong. I think Plague Carrier is going to see a lot of play. So Void Spirit, we talked about it when we were talking about the Call of the Void. Now we also have Sanctuary. Barrier health amount per hero hit is increased by up to 100, and then from all the way from 100 per hero hit to 110. So it already has a passive amount of 100, and now with the Facet is another additional 110 per hero hit. That's why I was saying that I think that this is still going to be the Facet pickup as opposed to Call of the Void. And then last but not least, I have one friend who's going to love this buff, who just plays when Witch Doctor, goes the Voodoo Festeration, gets a Dagon, gets the health, the Spell Lifesteal. I mentioned it yesterday with the Spell Lifesteal changes. I think that Voodoo Festeration is going to see a comeback. It's not going to be nearly as powerful as it was when the Facets were first introduced, but the self-heal increased from 25% to 40%, makes the healing a lot more viable. The damage already is significant enough to win the lane with. And now you're also self-healing at 40% at max level, as well as any spell lifesteal you might have. So, Witch Doctor, looking really good. Let's quickly run through the nerfs to the Facets. So, our first nerf is Broodmother. So debuff now only applies if Broodmother is in the same network of webs as the target. I think this is a necessary change because it was kind of cheesy. You could just put a web down in each lane and now nobody can heal. People were exploiting it. It got nerfed. So now you have to be in the same web. So it's still good if you're chasing down a specific hero. Now your necrotic web still debuffs them. However, it's not nearly as good as it was whenever you could just leave the lane with the web in it and the enemies can barely heal. Clockwork got his push duration decreased from 0.8 to 0.6. I think that this is significant enough to see a decrease in win rate overall, but I don't think it's significant enough for me to stop playing Clockwork. He's my most played hero since the Facets change, and I think he's a lot of fun. The able to play soccer with power cogs was the best change they added to Clockwork. He's so much fun to play. And I do think that this was necessary, and I do think it's going to be harder to hit a 3-person or a 3-cog on a single person like it was before. However, I still think it's doable, especially since people always derp out whenever they're in the cogs. Dragon Knight got a numbered nerf to the Worm's Wrath on the Corrosive Dragon Facet. Corrosive Breath armor reduction decreased from 1-2-3-4 to 0-1-2-3. Elder Titan got the number nerf to movement speed as attack speed decreased from 30% to 25%. So I think this was necessary because Elder Titans were getting rampages with this facet, and now it's going to be a little bit harder to do that. Ember Spirit got a nerf. The second attack damage penalty increased from 40% to 50%. You're just not going to be able to one-tap as many people with the double impact. It's still strong. I still think it's strong, and the immolation innate is strong-ish. So I do think this hero is still going to be viable, and I still think you're running double impact. Enigma Event Horizon got nerfed. Movement speed slow rescaled from 15% flat to now scales with Black Hole 9, 11, 13, 15. And I think this is necessary. It was a little bit too strong. And now we're going to be seeing it a little bit nerfed. But I still think it's strong. I still think this is the one you're going to go with. And the Gravity Well and the Event Horizon. It's going to be... I think the hero is still viable. And I still think this is the facet you pick. So Nyx Assassin got the mana burn tweak, so it no longer scales with Vendetta, no longer has a damage threshold, and it only triggers from Nyx Assassin's abilities, and instead of scaling from 15 to 30%, it only sits at a 15%. Overall, I think this facet just got destroyed. I don't think this facet is good anymore, but with Nyx Assassin's other buffs, I think the hero still works, and I think you probably just want to go with Scuttle. I think Mana Burn is going to be situational as opposed to being the stronger facet. Skywrath Mage saw a number decrease from 15-second duration on Shield of Scion to 12 seconds. Spiritbreaker, here we go. This is what I've been waiting for since the patch. I thought this was going to be in a letter patch, but they didn't. They waited till 7.37 to bless me with this nerf. Charge of Darkness, lingering bonus movement speed is now determined by Spiritbreaker's current movement speed instead of always the max. And then if you look at the Charge of Darkness nerf, now gradually ramps up to a maximum movement speed starting at 25%. So you no longer just get to press Q, shoot to maximum movement speed on an instant, and then break off after hitting somebody and run away at max movement speed. You have to build up the movement speed, and then the movement speed builds off as you're leaving. It is super stupid how it worked before, and I'm so glad they changed this. Our next big nerf that I was dying for was the tiny nerf. So all of his damage just got tweaked. Crash Landing got nerfed, Toss got nerfed, Grow got nerfed, Talents got nerfed, everything got nerfed. This tiny, I think the tiny might just, it's still going to be viable in specific situations. However, the damage is no longer going to be there. I think as soon as the enemies start to get BKB, tiny is just going to be out of the game. So with this change right here, that no longer pierces magic resistance granted by debuff immunity, this hero is pretty much dead. I still think it has a viability in the early game as a support, but I don't think you're going to see this scaling as a carry anymore. Unless they go for a right-click build. Our last facet we're going to cover for today is Bear Down. Ursa was super strong this patch. I played Ursa a lot, and bonus duration decreased from 20% to 14, 16, 18, 20. Now scales with Enrage. I think that it is a nerf by numbers, yes. However, I think this is negligible. I still think that Ursa is still going to be super strong. You get to level 18 really fast with Ursa. If you go the Battle Fury build and you get a Blink Dagger and you get a bunch of early kills, you are going to hit level 18 before anybody else in the game, and you're going to get this 20% bonus duration. And by the time you're level 18, that's around the time you're going to be getting your Skull Basher after BKB anyways, so all the debuffs that you want to be applying to enemies don't necessarily really matter until you're at like this 18 to 20%, and then that difference is not that big of a difference. So overall, I think this Ursa is still super strong. So thank you guys. If you're here at the end of the video, I appreciate you guys for sticking around and watching till the end. Otherwise, you guys just have yourself a fantastic day. I'm going to edit this and then I got to go to work. So I will see you guys on the next video. I want to talk about innates, and I want to talk about the biggest winners and losers of the patch. So if you would like to see those, leave a comment down below on your thoughts on my takes on these facets. If there's any specific abilities or heroes you want me to go over, please leave a comment in the description below. Leave a comment in the comment below. You know what I mean. Bye, guys.